Hi, this is Dominic Pace, who plays Gecko the Bounty Hunter from The Mandalorian, and you are listening to What a Piece of Junk podcast.
Hello, Space Junkies. How is everybody doing this week? Welcome to What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. What a Piece of Junk is the podcast on the FPN that is dedicated to covering everything Star Wars, from the original trilogy movies to the prequels to Legends, canons, and of course, Disney's acquisition of Star Wars and all of its products, and all that fan favorite content that's out there. We have got you covered. So please, make sure to stop on over at your local cantina, grab a drink, cozy up to your favorite alien or droid, no judgment here, and let's get ready to talk some Star Wars. I am your genial host, Scott Botman. With me, as always, are my two co-captains, Derek Marsh and Nathan Miracle. Derek, how are you doing, bud?
Great to actually have some awesome news to talk about. I think at this point we've done a lot of rumor speculation the past couple of recordings, so it's great to have some actual legit Star Wars news we get to talk about today. But I'm doing great. So, Nathan, how are you doing today, sir?
Well, I've been incredibly busy pulling people's arms out of their sockets, as you all know. Last recording, I was out.
Legitimately, we weren't supposed to say that, but
I mean, I was very, very busy with year-end close as an accountant. Our fiscal year runs 6 months different than the regular calendar year. So it's busy time for me.
You know, this would all be a lot simpler if we switched to metric time.
Well, of course it would.
Yeah, totally.
We could have 10-day weeks.
Yeah, it would make so much more sense. Anyway, but also complicating matters for you and, well, for most other accountants more than you. But this year, tax day was July 15th. It didn't really affect you all that much, but for other accountants, ooh.
Yeah, as I like to point out when people ask if I can do their taxes when they hear that I'm an accountant, I'm not that type of accountant.
Right.
There are actually many different types.
Yes. But
you
this is
have your CPA certification?
I do not.
Okay.
I have enough education credits for it, but there's tests and stuff.
I hate tests too, so don't worry.
Yeah. But this
and if you're like my mom, you still waited 3 extra months to get everything done. I don't know why, but that was done back in February.
This week is also a banner week for you, Mr. Miracle, because as most people know, you're our very own Dave Filoni, because you favor Clone Wars creator and Star Wars animation guru Dave Filoni so much physically. You even cosplay as the guy at conventions, and people think you're the real thing, and I have to crush their hopes and dreams by saying, actually, that's not the real Dave Filoni. Anyway, but this week we have huge news about Star Wars animation and about clones in specific.
Yeah.
But before we get into all that, Derek, why don't you let the folks know where they can find us out there on the interwebs?
Sure, yeah. So as Scott mentioned, we're part of the Fandom Podcast Network family. So check them out at the fpnet.podbean.com for the master feed. You can obviously download the app, which I recommend. Great stuff. You can also find the Fandom Podcast Network, besides our show, all the other great shows on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. Check us out, Facebook, the What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast Facebook group. Email, Scott runs that at whatapieceofjunkpod@gmail.com. The Twitter is at @WhatWars, and Instagram is the Fandom Podcast Network. But, as Nathan was saying, we don't want to have to go out there and pull any arms out of their sockets, but we also got to keep those little Wookiee children fed. So you can really help by donating, and that's not even monetary, just donating a few minutes of your time to leave us a great review when you search for the Fandom Podcast Network, specifically on the Apple Podcast, but any of the ways you can download our show. Obviously, you leave any type of review, and we especially love those 5-star reviews. But again, we want to hear your feedback, and we want to get that better show going. So anything you want to do, please do.
Absolutely. And, Itchy and all the other Wookiee younglings out there are very happy when we get 5-star reviews. And now it's time for Derek's favorite part of the show.
Woohoo!
What Star Wars t-shirts are we wearing this week? Derek, what you got?
So as I mentioned the past couple of times, I had finally gotten in my shirts that have been delayed for a while, obviously due to COVID, like everything else was. But I got them in. I washed them, obviously. And I get to show you guys the first one of 3. They will be thematic, as you could tell. So I'll show you guys here and explain it.
Awesome.
So it's a Chibi Mando, and he's holding a Chibi Yoda in his one arm. And then Yoda, or baby Yoda, the child, is reaching for a frog on the ground. So obviously he's ready for a snack. So the Mando, I guess, is, maybe part of PETA. I don't know. So he's trying to protect the little frog and baby Yoda from running off. So, but anyways, yes, that is one of my new Star Wars t-shirts I get to show off. So Nathan,
Spectacular.
what shirt do you have on this week?
Well, I found a brand new shirt while I was out there pulling out people's arms, and it is also a Mandalorian shirt, and it features the child 4 times. It is a set of 4 pictures of the child in different poses from the show.
Awesome.
And Scott, what t-shirt are you wearing today?
All right, so I'm kicking it a little bit old school. This is a nod to last year's Star Wars celebration in Chicago. We attended the cool fan cantina event after hours for Star Wars: The Old Republic MMORPG video game, and our friends at BioWare gave out these cool t-shirts that have the half Sith Empire, half Galactic Republic logo on the front in the titular dark side red and light side blue t-shirt. And also on the back of this shirt is the logo for the expansion pack that came out in October of 2019 for the MMO, Star Wars: The Old Republic Onslaught. And we got to see some awesome previews and behind-the-scenes information about Onslaught there at Star Wars Celebration Chicago. So I love wearing this shirt to promote the game, and because it's a cool Star Wars shirt, and it's a little niche of Star Wars fandom that even many hardcore Star Wars fans don't actually know about that much or pay attention to that much. But shout out to Manjani Oso and all the other team there at BioWare in Austin, Texas, that put together that excellent video game and expansion and run it for us. Derek, I feel like your Mandalorian shirt today disproves all of those baby Yoda, the child, eats chicken nuggets memes that I see on Facebook. Because as Mando himself, Din Djarin says, I have to name him just to get on Kevin's nerves, but as the Mandalorian himself says, give the child something with bones in it. And if your chicken nuggets have bones in them, then you're doing it wrong.
Well, there's a lot of planets out there, Scott, and there's a lot of diners that, not just decks, but there's a lot of diners out there. And maybe there's a version out there. Maybe Purdue has, maybe missing the mark for young alien children to, not just be, our full 100% white meat. Maybe they need to be 50% white meat, 50% bone.
Bone in nuggets. All right, sure. Everything's possible in a galaxy far, far away, right?
I have heard that frogs taste like chicken.
But that's the thing, yeah. Frog legs done right.
I get that, but it's not that he wouldn't dislike. It's not that he wouldn't like the taste of chicken nuggets, but he'd be all, there's no bones in this. He
wants bone in wings.
He wants bone in wings. That's right. He wants his fried chicken.
So go BW3.
He wants his. He wants
B-Dubs is missing the mark here, man. They could have totally gotten Mando stuff.
He wants his fried porg on the spit, with bones in it. That's what he wants.
There
all right.
Go.
Anyway,
that is the best way to eat them.
Well, I mean, you would know. I hear that Wookiees are connoisseurs of porg.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially Jonas Suatumo, talking about eating porgs on Twitter.
But but as we're joking around with our T-shirts here, and we kind of got off track. Let's mention how you could support the channel. Besides doing those reviews, you can obviously head over to the TeePublic store. So go to teepublic.com /user/Fandom Podcast Network. Then you could search for What a Piece of Junk podcast t-shirts and other cool apparel. You know, I've always got my trusty mug next to me here. So still haven't used it, but I feel like I don't want to because I don't know. It's cool enough.
It's
I
a collector's item. It's a collector's item. Yeah, totally.
You're
One of
using
a
it, just
kind.
not for
Technically,
drinking.
they slapped that on fresh. So
Exactly. All right, I'm going to wander over to the bar here, grab a drink, and get the latest rumors and scuttlebutt. This week, in deference to our favorite Wookiee returning to the show, we're hanging out at a small, earthy and wood-inspired cantina on the home planet of Kashyyyk. So let me go see what they have at this bar that is here way up in the treetops. All right, great. I'm back. It looks like Kashyyyk is a little more corporate than I was expecting. The drink that I found here is something that's way more mainstream than what I normally drink on the show. It's a Coca-Cola, but it's a specific one. It is the Orange Vanilla Coke. I don't know if you guys tried this. It came out a few years ago, and it made a big splash, and then it was kind of hard to find for a while, and it looks like they've brought it back a little more this summer. Have you guys had this before, either one of you?
I've had the cherry vanilla. That's kind of the more popular one, and I know that they were pushing like 3 or 4 vanilla flavor ones. So I still don't understand how they haven't figured out how to. I do a lot of those flavor water packets or the little concentrate that goes into the water.
Yeah, like Mio or whatnot.
Yeah, I don't know why Coke hasn't done that where it's like, hey, here's your Coca-Cola version of it. Goes great with Coke or Sprite or whatever else, you want to do it. But it makes more sense to go in with the Coke, right? So it'd be like vanilla cherry and stuff. It wouldn't be like strawberry kiwi or iced tea flavor that I get.
Yeah, the whole reason we have Diet Coke with lime and also, I mean, honestly, cherry Coke is because back in the day, way back in the day, people would take the existing drink and squeeze lime in there or drop cherries in there. Or if you were a soda jerk back then in the day, they would just add the syrup, right there at the counter. Yeah, you're right. That's a missed opportunity. They should make mix-ins for Coke.
Yeah, now I have tried the orange vanilla Coke. It's been a while. I wasn't a huge fan of it. It was okay, but I don't think I liked it any better than regular Coke or the cherry Coke.
Yeah, I think I would rank it just below cherry vanilla Coke, or even just below vanilla Coke. I enjoy just regular vanilla Coke.
I'm trying to cut out sodas though, so.
Yeah, I need to do that
Enjoy it
too.
from me.
I need to do that too. I've decided not to keep any in the house, so I went and specifically bought this bottle today for the recording session. So there you go.
Well, and I have to tease you, Scott, because I don't know if you've seen the commercials or not. Did you see that Starbucks cold nitro brew is now coming in a can?
I did. Now, here's the reason why that's not great news for people like me who love the cold fusion coffee, as my wife calls it. The canned version is just the coffee, no salted caramel sweet cream. And I want mine to where it separates with the nitrogen when they pull it out of the tap. And then by the time I get it home, the cream has diluted and like fallen down into the coffee. Because if you drink nitro cold brew with no cream or sugar on top, oh my God, it's like 1,000 times more bitter than regular coffee. Now, the acidity isn't so bad because of the nitrogen in there, but the flavor is not great to me without the cream on top. So yeah, I only drink the unhealthiest version of nitro cold brew. And that is the
so
one
what you're
with
saying,
like
this
a
is
layer
nitro
of
cold
cream.
brew light.
Exactly. Or eat like super dark. I don't know, because there's no cream at all. Now, if they come out,
I would say, could you add your own cream to it? Like,
I should get one of the cans and try that.
Just try it
to
out.
See how it tastes.
Because maybe it's cheaper too than spending $7 every time.
Well, the one I get, I've got it organized in the Starbucks app to where it's $5.95.
Okay, $6.
yeah. So save a dollar.
Very specific price there, Scott.
It is, but that's because I add vanilla bean powder and 2 squirts of caramel syrup. All right, we're getting way too specific on my coffee here. But
especially since you're not actually drinking any of it.
Yeah, I'm not actually drinking it for today's show. So I'm gonna but take a second here to pour one out. Actually, unfortunately, one of the things that the bartender was telling me about in Sherwook, which I am fluent, thank you, Mr. Miracle, was that Star Wars special effects technician and MythBuster great Grant Imahara died suddenly earlier this month. He was only 49 years old, a mere 6 years older than yours truly. And that is just way too young, you guys. It appears that it was a brain aneurysm. Of course, most people listening to the show would know Grant from the show Mythbusters, where on Discovery Channel, where he was a stalwart of the show for many, many seasons. Probably him, Tori Belici, and Carrie Byron were the three assistants to the main Mythbusters that most of us know, because they were the trio that was sort of, in charge of getting some real science on the show for the time that Mythbusters was the most successful and had the highest ratings. But a lot of people didn't know that Imahara was also a Star Wars special effects dude. Back during the time of the prequels, he was an official employee at Lucasfilm and worked with the Industrial Light and Magic guys and helped run R2-D2 during the filming of the prequels. And he also helped build models used in the prequels. Some of you may have seen the images that StarWars.com shared on Twitter and other social media of a younger Imahara standing inside the ring of a giant miniature of a Trade Federation droid control ship from the Phantom Menace. And you could see him fiddling with the lights in the little docking bay section before they began to film some of the outer space scenes in episode 1. Guys, did you know that Imahara had done special effects on Star Wars before seeing it in his obituaries?
I
did
knew
know that.
I
And
knew
I think I
because
actually knew that.
Go ahead, Nathan.
I think I actually knew that from his time on Mythbusters. I believe because they, from time to time, they mention, I did this, and from that I learned how to build this particular thing that we're going to use for this myth. So I believe it had been mentioned there, and he's also come to DragonCon a few times, I believe.
Yes, many times, and
so
did a lot of BattleBots type stuff at DragonCon as well.
Yeah, which if you're ever at DragonCon on a Monday, they have a whole BattleBots tournament. It's great fun. It's a great way to spend your Monday at DragonCon when there's not a lot else going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I highly recommend that.
So, Derek, did you learn about him working on Star Wars via Mythbusters?
Yeah, as I mentioned, or as Nathan mentioned, that would be the same time I learned at some point, because when all that stuff came out on Netflix, my wife binged it, and I caught many episodes.
Yeah.
And I remember once or twice, I think he mentioned, he got to work on that. Obviously, he wasn't part of the episode that they actually did Mythbust Star Wars stuff. That was, after they had already left.
Yeah.
When they had the newer episodes or the newer crew. So obviously then would have been prime time, I thought. So a missed opportunity to relate that. So, and then, just overall, it's just sad to hear. One, obviously, like you said, pretty young. But at the same time, just a guy, I always liked him. He was very well-spoken on the show, and it was just really cool to listen, like, how, especially that mechanical side of things. Obviously, he was the one that was very involved when it came to any type of mechanical engineering type deal scenarios that the Mythbusters were dealing with. Any type of electronics, he was always the one with the controller, right? Doing all the servo working and all that stuff. So, but it really kind of fell off on the radar. I had actually known that they had done. The three of them were doing that White Rabbit or whatever show on Netflix, I think, or Amazon.
Right. Yeah. No, it was on Netflix. Yeah.
Netflix. So I watched a few episodes of that. It just wasn't the same as Mythbusters, so it kind of wasn't something that I really cared for. And then I felt like, though, recently I had seen that he was doing some solo show or something, I thought, like on YouTube or something, but I ended up going through it, and it was somebody else I thought of.
Yeah. For me, Imahara was always a really down-to-earth kind of guy on Mythbusters and other places where he was explaining how things worked scientifically and special effects and what have you. And just, he seemed to be a really big robotics dude. As some of you probably know, he helped build a robot sidekick for Craig Ferguson back when Ferguson was the host of The Late Late Show on CBS. It was Jeff Peterson, the robot sidekick. He had like a metal mohawk, and he was like a almost like one of the endoskeletons from Terminator, where he was a robot skeleton, but just the puppeteer running him was always so quick-witted and great. And yeah, a real tragedy to have such a bright mind like Imahara taken from us way too soon. I think that it would be great at some point if maybe there was a little nod to him in an upcoming Star Wars project in some way. I wouldn't be surprised to see a character with an anagram of his name in some Star Wars animation or what have you.
Yeah, GI something.
No, that Jeff Peterson robot you mentioned on the Craig Ferguson's Late Show. You may not, well, obviously you remember, Scott, but our listeners may not know that I once owned a game store way back over a decade ago, and it was a lot of fun, but it was really hectic, really weird schedule. And at that time, I would stay up and watch the Late Show, so I got to see when Jeff Peterson was first introduced and how he evolved over time on the show. He started off as just the robot, but eventually, he got a jacket, and this was CBS. It was right next door to where they do The Price is Right, so he eventually ended up with one of those The Price is Right name tags.
Yes,
the price tag name tag.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was an amazing robot.
Yeah, good stuff. I think his work on the Star Wars Skywalker saga films, of course, will long outlive Imahara, just like it does for pretty much anyone involved with those stories. And so to Grant, we say, no one's ever really gone. And we thank you for all you gave to us.
And he's more powerful now than you could ever imagine.
Exactly. Yes. All right. Moving on to those more immediate Star Wars projects. And here is a rumor that the bartender here at Kashyyyk gave me. Hayden Christensen, Anakin Skywalker himself, might be coming back to live-action Star Wars via the upcoming Obi-Wan Kenobi television show on Disney+. So the rumor is that Christensen would, of course, play Anakin in the show. Now, the question on everyone's mind is, how would he be in Obi-Wan's show if, as we have been led to believe, Obi-Wan's show is set after Episode 3, The Revenge of the Sith? I don't know, guys. Yeah, flashbacks is one option. Although Star
Which would
Wars...
be cool because they might actually do some live-action Clone War stuff, like legit Clone War. Like, have General Skywalker type deal, because obviously, there's a huge difference. I mean, you could see it between Episode 2 and Episode 3, but we never really get Hayden to play what I feel is the best version of a Skywalker, which is through the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And that's credit to the writing. That's credit to the animation team, and that's credit to
Matt Lanter.
Matt. So I mean, just overall, but I don't think Hayden's a bad actor. I just don't think the script was ever well written for him. And obviously he was young when they first casted him in Episode 2. And again, I just don't think there was much there for him to do. And I mean, he's not bad in Revenge of the Sith.
No.
And his couple of solo movies he did after that, never really took off and really wasn't much for that. But again, poor writing. It's kind of like the whole Robert Pattinson thing. If you give him a good script, I think he's got potential. Obviously, he shunned away from the limelight for a long time. Like you said, it's like him trying, like as much as Ewan McGregor trying to get them to go to a convention, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think now, I mean, obviously it's 20 years since we said Phantom Menace, so it's coming up here in 2 years that we'll have 20 years since Episode 2. And it's just, I think, right timing to bring him on, because that's theoretically when the Obi-Wan series would probably air at this point, due to all the COVID delays.
Yeah, so the rumor in the source that the bartender gave to me, which that source is Screen Rant, so judge that how you will, how you feel about the veracity of Screen Rant rumors. They're saying that Christensen was going to be a regular on the Obi-Wan show, which implies in a series like that he'd have a very substantial role. He's not a guest star, he's not even recurring, he's a regular, and that the rumor goes further to say that originally Disney, Lucasfilm had planned to announce this at the now canceled Star Wars Celebration 2020, which would have happened next month, August, in California. So the question is, if that was planned to be like a centerpiece of Star Wars Celebration 2020, will they reveal this and confirm it in some sort of virtual way next month? Are we looking at a situation where Christensen maybe be playing Darth Vader in the Obi-Wan show, and every so
He's
often?
too short.
Well, I mean, you can work on
You
that.
got stilts.
Yeah.
You could do the Thanos treatment. I get it.
Yeah. And maybe he appears in human form every so often in like Force visions or what have you, that where he and Obi-Wan are talking.
Well, you could before I turn it over to you, Nathan, you could also do the point where you actually get to see him through the mask of Vader in regards to like with Rebels, right? When Ahsoka's fighting him and she takes off a piece of his mask in their fight, you actually get to see Anakin's face. So there's a good possibility that you actually get to see Anakin's face in some disformation.
Yeah, like through the ripped eyepiece or what have you.
Well, that's certainly a possibility. You mentioned flashbacks as a possibility, and they could go the Arrowverse route of having parallel stories with Obi-Wan doing something in the present time from the perspective of the show, while also telling a story of the Clone Wars. So that's a possibility. But Hayden Christensen is also 20 years older than he was in Attack of the Clones, so I'm not sure how that might necessarily play out. Of course, movie magic can do a whole lot. So,
True.
He's got a big scar though too. So
that's true too. But another possibility is Obi-Wan's a crazy old wizard living out in the middle of the desert. Perhaps he has no one else to talk to and kind of imagines or force projects an image of what he feels like Anakin would look like now.
So we've got
20 years later.
Star Wars Castaway.
Yeah, kind of.
Could be. I kind of agree with Nathan, though, that he wouldn't necessarily be doing flashbacks because, like you said, he's older now. I mean, they could de-age him, obviously. Although, depending on who you ask, he doesn't look that much different than he did 20 years ago. But I think it's more likely that he's somehow Darth Vader, and the two of them will be talking via the Force, so that he would see. In his mind's eye, Obi-Wan would see Anakin without the prosthetics.
As long as we don't get a
Maybe.
shirtless Vader.
But I don't really think that that's going to happen, because in A New Hope, it really seems like Darth Vader had no idea that Obi-Wan was still alive. He said that he felt a presence that he hadn't felt since.
Something, right? Now there's a variety of ways to interpret what Vader had to say in A New Hope regards to Obi-Wan. When they meet each other again, they draw lightsabers. He tells Obi-Wan, "You should not have come back." Does he mean Obi-Wan shouldn't have come back from when he last saw him leave on Mustafar, or is he referencing some other time where he and Obi-Wan had interacted post him transforming into the cyborg?
Good question.
Yeah.
Well,
We know Obi-Wan is all about interpretation.
That's true. Everything's from a certain point of view.
Yeah.
So, but I think again, I kind of like your idea too, there, Nathan. That he's like a Force ghost illusion type deal. I mean, he's not obviously a Force ghost at this point, but that's how he projects him. He sees him, so that would be something where it's going to take some CGI anyway. So it's not that Hayden couldn't play it, but then there's going to be touch-ups anyways, right? So, so maybe you do get a crazy old hermit Obi-Wan, which I think would be cool, right? I think that's the side of things that I want to see. I want to see how Obi-Wan gets the name of Old Ben and gets the name of a crazy hermit.
Yeah, and we could have the classic scene where we see Obi-Wan talking to Anakin, and then somebody else comes up and we see the same scene from their point of view, and Obi-Wan's just sitting there talking to a rock.
Or even better, we have a scene where Obi-Wan is like talking to Anakin, and when the stormtroopers round the corner, because, crazy old man has invaded our Star Destroyer, they see Darth Vader talking to Obi-Wan, sabers out, getting ready to throw down again. But like every time Obi-Wan looks at Vader, he sees Hayden Christensen. No accoutrement, no cyborg.
That'd be cool.
Oh, that could be awesome. Yeah. Oh, that'd be wild.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want somebody to edit that from A New Hope. Just edit in Hayden Christensen.
And then,
place Darth
like
Vader
Derek
Well,
said,
that's still my one thing I don't like out of the special edition is, they take out and put him in at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. But see, like Derek said, this idea of Obi-Wan sees him as Anakin solves the height problem, because
it does.
you don't have to worry about Hayden's too short. And then you can get somebody like, I don't know, I forgot the name of the guy. Well, no,
David Prowse.
Somebody like him in that somebody really tall.
But I don't know who played him in the last in Rogue One.
I used to know that guy's name, but I was going to say Tate Fletcher.
Chunky Vader.
Tate Fletcher to play him. Tate being the guy who played Paz Vizsla on The Mandalorian. He's played Jason Voorhees, so I believe.
I was going to say that's Jason there. So
yes, he's got the right physique to be Darth Vader. Plus, he knows how to walk around as a menacing villain with a mask and no lines.
And a single blade, right?
And a single blade. Boom. It writes itself. Come on, Disney. Where you at? Okay.
Yeah, the real question
Where's
is,
that Disney money?
Long,
come on.
Yeah.
How long can we keep getting Mufasa to come back and voice Darth Vader?
Oh, it's going to have to be one of the gentlemen from the animated Rebels.
They just strip it.
Yeah, only have Vader reuse lines that they already have recorded. Then anytime it needs to be original dialogue, Hayden says it because it's Obi-Wan's perspective.
Yeah.
That can work.
Because I don't think this series will go more than 6 or 8 episodes. I think it'll be a single series.
Yeah.
Unlike The Mandalorian. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I feel that this is kind of a limited series.
I agree. And
that's the impression I get too.
Many of the other rumors that we have heard say that it would be a limited series. And basically what they're doing is taking ideas that were on the back burner to be a trilogy of Obi-Wan Kenobi movies starring McGregor and just turning them into a Disney Plus series of 1-hour episodes of like 6 to 8 hours.
Now, we could still end up getting a spinoff, though, from that series. They might introduce a character or two that would be worthwhile. Because, I mean, they're already talking about that with the Mandalorian characters, so who knows. But this would be the ideal time to introduce Mara Jade, in my opinion.
No, you know who I think it's going to be? I think you're right, but you know who I think it's going to be? Somebody who hangs out with Darth Vader during this time frame in canon.
Dr. Aphra?
Dr. Aphra.
Well, that could be, too.
And so
that'd be a good one as well.
What we'll have is Dr. Aphra is running with Vader to go get, I don't know, fill in the blank Sith artifact here. And Obi-Wan is also trying to get that Sith artifact. Because if you have a good Star Wars story, you got to have a good MacGuffin. And so our Sith artifact is our MacGuffin. And Obi-Wan's chasing it down from the light side. Vader and Aphra are chasing it down from the dark side. And the way we get out of this without it ruining the existing Galactic Civil War storyline from the original trilogy is, at the end of the deal, Obi-Wan and Vader are distracting each other in some epic lightsaber duel while Dr. Aphra does what she does best and runs off with the treasure.
Or I was going to say this is where Darth Maul comes in and gets trapped in that Sith temple.
Ooh. Yeah, because he follows them there. Because that's where they've gone to get the thing on Malachor. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, I like it.
Oh,
I like
cool.
it a lot.
And then we get live action Malachor. Come on, good times.
And if they wanted to keep the idea that Darth Vader doesn't know whether Obi-Wan is alive or not, they could have it to where Darth Vader and Obi-Wan do talk to each other, but each one of them thinks that it's a projection from the artifact.
Ooh,
that's
cool.
That's how it's linking them up.
Or
like
in their
Ezra and Darth Maul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. Or in their Titanic duel at the end of the series, it appears that Obi-Wan dies and Vader leaves thinking he's buried under rubble on Malachor or whatever.
And this could be a chance we actually get live action Inquisitors.
Oh, that'd be so awesome.
And actually get Sarah Michelle Gellar to play the seventh sister.
Okay, you got to stop because now this isn't going to happen, and I'm going to be sad.
Well, come on, we know Nathan's got the hookup. He can just, send this recording to Filoni, and
Yeah.
they can just call us up.
Yeah.
All I need is a small royalty fee. I don't need to do much else.
I'll trade my ideas in exchange for first run action figures from the series. That's all I want.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because all you're gonna get is some background character 500 copies when you go to the store.
Right. Yes.
So.
Well, anyway,
Any other rumors, Scott, going on at the bar?
Well, speaking of backgrounds, this is the rumor that will not die, and that is from some interesting fanboys on YouTube. The rumor is Disney will, quote, ignore the sequel trilogy by having the World Between Worlds plot device used to send characters back in time and alter the timeline of the Star Wars galaxy, much like happened on Star Wars Rebels when Ezra Bridger used the World Between Worlds to save Ahsoka Tano from dying at the hands, or apparently dying at the hands of her former master, Anakin Skywalker, nay Darth Vader. So we talked a good bit about this in episode 28 of our show. So if you want to hear what Derek and I had to say, go back to episode 28. But Nathan was unavailable with other duties. So Nathan, what are your thoughts about this idea that the sequel trilogy might be sidelined by time travel in the Star Wars universe?
Well, I think somebody who was a Star Wars fan, but not a Star Trek fan, eventually ended up hearing about Star Trek and how they had their own Abrams verse and decided, hey, J.J. Abrams also directed a Star Wars movie. What if we put that in its own Abrams verse as well? And then just ran with it. I don't really think that this is a legitimate rumor, in part because I've only ever heard it from one source.
Yeah.
Usually if a rumor is true, we hear bits and pieces or some sort of confirmation somewhere. And we just haven't on this.
Everyone's quoting the YouTuber.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not gonna name him because we'll get demonetized or whatever it is that Kyle does to people on the Fandom Podcast Network.
It'll just be a beep.
Yeah. And we're demonetized enough. I don't know if you guys heard, but at the end of last episode, we tried to take off and the hyperdrive failed because we didn't have credit on our Fandom Podcast Network credit account at Hyperdrives Are Us. Thanks a lot, Kyle.
Wait a minute. You guys were going to take off and just leave me?
We planned for you to take one of the little pods that comes in these YT 1300 freighters.
You know I'm too big for those pods.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that.
Anyways,
Poor Nathan has to walk home.
I'm actually going to pull in one other bit that makes me not quite believe this rumor, and I'm actually pulling from Harry Potter here. Harry Potter has a time travel aspect to it with the time turners in one of the books/movies. These time turners, you can use them to go back in time a few hours. But if you actually look at what happens when people go back in time, whatever happened. So even the first time they're going through the story, whatever their future selves did when they came back in time still happens. So you have kind of a stable time loop.
I was going to say it's less like Star Trek time travel and more like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure time travel. Yeah, remember in that movie when they would say, oh man, it's too bad a trash can isn't here for us to dump on his head. Poof, a trash can would appear on his head. Ted, don't forget to go back and set up the trash can after we finish our project.
Except that's exactly the type of thing you couldn't do in Harry Potter. The trash can would have been there if you had gone back in time. You can't go back in time and interact with yourself in a way that actually changes time.
Well, and that's what I mean. The trash can would always have stopped Ted's father from getting in their way. Otherwise, there'd be no time travel device in the future because there'd be no perfect society as a result of Wild Stallion's music.
Well, time travel in the Star Wars universe, as far as we've seen it, works kind of the same way. Mm-hmm. Ahsoka was saved by Ezra when that fight happened, when her fight with Darth Vader happened. She was saved. At that point in time, Ezra couldn't not do the thing, so to speak. he couldn't not go and save her. It was kind of a stable time loop. You can't, as far as we can tell, you can't use that world between worlds to go back and change what actually happened. Whatever you go back and try to change, you change to whatever actually happened in the first place. So I don't think that they're going to use that as a plot device to get rid of anything.
Yeah, because it would be, I mean, on the surface, going back in time to change an existing story is convoluted. Going back in time in Star Wars to use the world between worlds to change an existing story is incredibly more convoluted. And I feel like one of the major complaints from people that don't enjoy parts of or all of the Disney era sequel trilogy is that it's way too convoluted, right, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, that's I love everything Favreau and Filoni's doing, but that's the one thing I didn't care for when Rebels introduced time travel, because then it's like, okay, whatever they want to happen can happen now. They can write it into a story, and I just didn't want that. You know, we have that in Star Trek, and yeah, that's fun. You know, we have it in a whole bunch of other sci-fi fantasy things, but I didn't want that in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. You know, it's obviously been many years since that episode aired. I'm okay with it, but I don't want it to be this crutch that Disney can now use and say, well, we screwed up this, now we can just do whatever we want. And, you know, that's where, again, these rumors can happen, because it is legit canon that they can time travel. And it's just, like you said, now it's just convoluted. And now the question is, I'm assuming when Ezra pulled Ahsoka out, Ahsoka was no longer in the temple at the time, right? And that's where she had to return, and Vader's aware of it. So it makes me curious, like, okay, so, and obviously the Emperor is aware of this. So out of this whole time, these many years that's passed, why wasn't the Emperor trying to recreate this time travel? Like, why did he even bother with it, right? Like, he should be eternal. He doesn't need to make clones. Like, he has the power to time travel.
Well, but he doesn't, because in that episode of Rebels, Ezra and Ahsoka successfully block his entrance into...
Correct, but to me, there's a gazillion Sith temples and Jedi temples out there that the Emperor hasn't, out of all this time. Like, to me, it's like, why are you putting your resources into a Death Star when you should be literally putting all your resources into figuring out time travel? Because then you could control the galaxy purely on that. You could control time and everything.
Well, the simple answer to that is Palpatine is the guy about backup plans. Every plan has a backup plan. I mean, you know.
So we're saying that at this point we can't confirm that he has not discovered time travel.
Correct.
I will say that the rumor does actually address that point. You know, I don't want to give too much credibility to the rumor, but
that's a rumor.
It is, yeah. But part of the rumor is that the second Death Star, part of the purpose of the second Death Star was to look into the world between worlds. And that mirror room that Rey goes into in Rise of Skywalker existed on the second Death Star, and that was where Palpatine did all of his, you know, trying to get into the world between worlds. Now, my question then is, if that's the case, why did you leak that to the Rebels? I mean, this seems like an even dumber plan.
Yeah. I think part of this rumor is leftover rumors from Colin Trevorrow's version of Episode 9, where, you know, things were going to turn out a whole lot different. And who knows, it might also be from chunks of storyline that could have happened in George Lucas's version of Episode 9, which would have been entirely different with the midichlorian universe and so on and so forth.
We would have never gotten Rey, Poe, and Finn and BB-8 for sure then.
Yeah, well, maybe BB-8, and probably Finn. I believe there was a discussion of a defector stormtrooper in Lucas's trilogy, but Poe Dameron certainly was a creation of J.J. Abrams and his crew. So much so that they planned to kill him off originally in Episode 7, and Oscar Isaac, being the gregarious and charismatic fellow that he is, talked his way into continuing his job, and, you know, good for him. I got to respect the hustle. Anyway, but yeah, so Nathan, I guess I'll ask you to sum up here the same question I asked everybody else on episode 28. How likely do you want this to happen, and how likely do you think it is to actually happen with the whole sidelining of the sequel trilogy?
It would be interesting to see what might have happened in an alternate universe. I'll grant you that. But ultimately, I don't want unstable time loops and changing of history to be a thing in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's never been before, and it really shouldn't be. And I think that kind of explains why Palpatine, hasn't done this if it's just not something that's possible. He can't go back and change things. So I don't think it's a very likely rumor. I don't really want it to be true. It's interesting to think about, but beyond that, no.
I mean, we just had a boatload of, well, I say just, in the past decade, we've already had a boatload of Star Wars canon completely wiped out and rendered totally
Non-canon
with
Legendary
the elimination of the old expanded universe, with characters like Derek was talking about earlier this episode, Mara Jade and Talon Card and so forth. I don't want to go through that again this decade, where we take all the people that you said were replacing the ones that we had learned about in the 1990s and exiled them to the same fate. It's too much of a Marvel Comics influence on Star Wars. Normally, in my opinion, that's a good thing because I love comic books.
And the MCU is good at what they're doing.
Yes, but in comic book universe, it makes sense for there to be plenty of time travel, rewipe, total redo of the universe. Over in DC, we have a Crisis on Infinite Earths every so often to do all that, or the New 52 or whatever. But Star Wars doesn't have enough, if you will, super powerful beings in order for that to make any sense. It's not that kind of universe, and I don't want it to turn into that kind of universe. So
you don't want Infinity Stones?
I don't want Infinity Stones, and I don't want a Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I don't want a bunch of alternate timelines.
This is how you get metachlorian stones.
Yes, right.
But this is an interesting point too, though, because you mentioned that the MCU is really good at what they're doing, and I really enjoyed the MCU up until the point where they started introducing time travel and using that as a way to undo things that had happened.
Mm-hmm.
That was my least favorite part about the last two movies.
Yeah.
So,
really, just the last movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I enjoyed the Infinity War aspect.
It's the best movie.
I wanted it to stick.
Yeah.
I wanted them to. I mean, obviously, they're going to have to find a way to get these people back, but I wanted that to happen organically in a way that didn't involve this Deus Ex Machina of, hey, we just time travel and make everything okay.
But they kind of still got that. I mean, that's how you get Gamora, right? I mean, because Gamora and Black Widow both dead. I mean, because they actually had to be for the Soul Stone. So, but regardless, I get what you're saying. So again, we're time travel in Star Wars. It's like I don't want things getting retconned because somebody made a boo-boo. Just live with it. I'm okay with it. You could do me the favor, and the stuff that we do enjoy as Star Wars fans, continue to make that. Like, where's our Solo, series or our Solo 2 movie that we want? Where's our Donald Glover as Lando movie or series now? Yeah. Where's that stuff that we want? You could have given us a prequel to Rogue One. Give us something. Great to have Felicity Jones in it, but give us that Saw Gerrera and Jyn Erso young time frame. You've got 20-year gap between Return of the Jedi and the Resistance and the start of Episode 7. Give us that time frame. And like I said, Sebastian Stan, perfect Luke Skywalker. Make it happen. Easy enough. They could just simply say, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it. And it's like trying to pull teeth with Disney with Star Wars when MCU's got 20 things on the table and they've already officially announced it. Where is this for Star Wars other than we've got 2-3 things now that we know for sure and an unannounced movie?
I would not be surprised if we get an episode of The Mandalorian in which Sebastian Stan plays Luke Skywalker. That would not surprise me.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
And I would pay money for that, Disney.
Yeah, I would like it. I would enjoy seeing it. Anyway, speaking of things that we think you will enjoy, let's take a short break so that Kevin can tell us all about all the other shows here on the Fandom Podcast
And Derek
Network.
needs to cool off.
Yes, he does.
Hi, this is Delilah S. Dawson and her current cold virus, and you are listening to What a Piece of Junk podcast.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We'd like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to our other awesome shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, our weekly pop culture podcast. Couch Potato Theater, our podcast celebrating our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a whole year in movies. The End Zone, our NFL podcast. Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. The Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville podcast. Hair Metal, the 1980s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our Doctor Who podcast. Lethal Mullet, a 1980s action film podcast. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast. And our newest show, Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast. A deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. You can enjoy all of these great Fandom Podcast Network shows on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. The FPNet can also be found on the Podbean app. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and now iHeartRadio. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook. You can also email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find the Fandom Podcast Network on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
Hi, this is Eric Walker, the original Mace, the OM in the universe. Sorry, Sam Jackson. And you're listening to What a Piece of Junk podcast.
All right, and we're back. Thank you so much, Kevin. So this week's big news for our episode is the announcement of new Star Wars animated project. The Bad Batch is coming from Lucasfilm Animation to your Disney Plus screen in 2021. Dave Filoni, good news. Your legacy continues. And also your doppelganger, Dave Filoni, is going to be in charge of the show again. Master of Star Wars Animation. We're looking at Clone Force 99 from Star Wars The Clone Wars is returning to our screens, but this time they're not part of the Grand Army of the Republic because this show will be set post-Clone Wars. We'll be in the Galactic Civil War era or the Imperial era, or as people my age like to call it, the OG era of Star Wars. The Empire's in charge, the light side is on the downslope, and our heroes from the original trilogy have yet to rise to the forefront. And these guys from the Bad Batch are somehow still around, still kicking, and Nathan, they're gonna be mercenaries. What do you think about this announcement?
That's incredible. I love anything that can keep D. Bradley Baker working.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's set for life.
Keeping him and Dave Filoni together since the days of Appa in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, that's a deep cut, yo. But if anyone would get it, it would be you, since you and Dave are part of the same neural network there.
He's a clone of a clone.
Yeah. So I'm excited also. Probably not nearly as excited as you are, because these things always have more meaning to you because you're a close connection to the Clone Wars series and just Dave himself and Star Wars animation in general. But I'm super excited because when I saw the Bad Batch story arc for the Clone Force 99 in the final season of the Clone Wars, I was like, you know, these guys could have their own show. It had a little bit of a early Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles feel to it with the four brothers, if you will, and getting together to fight the forces of evil, even though the rest of the world looks down upon them because they are mutants. So, each of them had enough specific chemistry, personality matrix, if you will, that they would all play off against each other well, because they had those four famous archetypes. Nathan and I have discussed this many times on a different podcast, in fact, about the four humors, if you will, from Greek mythology, or the four character archetypes as exemplified by famous foursomes such as TMNT, the Golden Girls, and several people over on Star Trek. Derek, did you get that feeling when you looked at the Bad Batch? Did Clone Force 99 strike you as a group whose adventures you would like to know more about?
Yeah, we've talked about that. It would be exciting to see those other missions that they always talked about in that 4-episode arc. It's like, oh, these guys are win rate mission success 100%. They're the ones that nobody else will do. They're kind of the they were already kind of the mercenaries of the Galactic Republic, right? They were the squad that would get their hands dirty because they could go beyond what the normal clone trooper could do. Because of their defects, which are really more superpowers.
In that story arc, the Bad Batch story arc, they struck me more as the Dirty Dozen. They're like the last chancers, if you will,
or the
guys,
13th Samurai.
Yes, exactly. There you go. Let's get a little Kurosawa in here because that's part of the formula for great Star Wars. So
just having them there, but it actually gets me more excited that you mentioned that it's post, right? So what are they doing afterwards? It's not to say we still can't get some episode flashbacks, which I'm assuming we will, of Clone War stuff. Hey, there's always Budapest, right? So they got to show Budapest.
Yep.
But that's what's getting me excited is that it's post and it's on our favorite OG era.
Yes. So Nathan, the StarWars.com press release reads in part: members of Bad Batch, a unique squad of clones who vary genetically from their brothers in the clone army, each possess a singular exceptional skill, which makes them extraordinarily effective soldiers and a formidable crew. In the post-Clone War era, they will take on daring mercenary missions as they struggle to stay afloat and find new purpose. So now we've had a lot of good experience, Nathan, with a clone finding new purpose in the form of Captain Rex. So that gives me a lot of hope that the Bad Batch boys might turn out to be forces for good on the light side, much like he did. Do you think that is likely?
I think they're going to be more forces for neutral. I think Rex is a very honorable person to begin with. Even in the Clone Wars animated series, whereas the Bad Batch, like Derek said, struck me more as the Dirty Dozen type people. They'll take whatever jobs they can get for the money. So I expect to see more interaction with people like Bosk or other bounty hunters, smugglers, that type of thing.
Young Boba Fett.
Maybe Boba Fett. Boba Fett is growing at a standard rate, whereas the other clones grow at an accelerated rate. So at this point, he might be a teenager. Depends on when exactly in between the movies we go for. So that is a possibility. We could see a little bit of Boba Fett growing into being the Mandalorian armor clad, the guy wearing the suit.
Right.
But I think he'd still be a teenager. He probably wouldn't quite fit into that yet, but we could see him growing into it. I expect more kind of fringe type stuff, maybe even with some Dr. Aphra, depending on how close we get to epised 4.
Yeah, it might have ties into the Obi-Wan series.
Yeah, we could definitely have an Obi-Wan overlap here. And then, if you introduce Dr. Aphra as an animated character in Bad Batch, then when you have the lead up to Obi-Wan's live action debut, you could hopefully fans have received Aphra well in animation, and then you could highlight the fact that she's going to be making the jump to live action in the Obi-Wan series. That would be like a sort of a repeat of what happened with Ahsoka.
And you can get the early Rebels too, right? There might be a young Harrison Dula at some point.
Yep, and certainly this would be the right time frame for Kanan Jarrus to be making his way across the galaxy.
Yes, because Kanan Jarrus, we see him as a young person in the last few episodes of the Clone Wars. Of course, we know approximately what his age was based on what happened in Rebels and what he said he was doing at that time.
Right.
Actually, all of the people in Rebels, that whole cell, are alive at this point, but they're at various ages. So, I don't think we're going to run into Ezra. He's stuck on Lothal. But they might run into some of the others. Hera, we know. We actually saw her in one of the Clone Wars episodes in the Battle for Rylon. Yeah, so we know that she's old enough that they could run into her. And like I said, it depends a lot. There's quite a few years between episode 3 and episode 4. So
Yeah, and we could
Yeah,
easily
that
see
wide.
them run across Zeb. He could be
Mhm.
out doing, whatever he was doing before he hooked up with
Maybe they have
Kanan
to
and
hunt
them.
him down.
Maybe so, and he escapes them.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe we, finally get to see what his people did, before they were scattered to the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the Bad
there's all
Batch
sorts.
is
And I'll be honest, I'm hoping that they actually get to deal with the Empire. I mean, if they're going to be mercenaries, I want to see some of the stuff that we don't get to see on the Empire side, right? I really like to see a little bit more in regards to, maybe we'll get a young Krennic,
Yeah. Or
Yeah, because
Leland Urso.
in Empire Strikes Back, we see
Yeah,
that
Saw
the
Gerrera.
Empire does hire bounty hunters. So,
Mhm.
I wouldn't put it past them to hire some former Republic troops, because as far as the galaxy is concerned, the Empire is just the Republic reformed. So, they shouldn't be outlaws or anything. They're just former troops.
Well, and I think we've had this discussion too. I'm sure, Scott, you maybe recall it. What happens to all those troopers, right? Some of them become stormtroopers, right?
Yeah.
But then they started to get away from that and start going to individuality and that kind of thing. So what's the fallout like? And I'm hoping that's what we get to see early on, right? What's the fallout with the clones, and especially these guys that are de facto clones, right? Essentially.
Well, Nathan, talk to us
Defective
a little
clones.
bit about what happened with Gregor and Rex and what's the third guy's name? Wolf. Yes, Gregor
Yes.
and Rex and Wolf were, as old men, hanging out on the planet in Star Wars Rebels, fishing for giant sandworms.
Yeah, because they age fast.
Yeah, and so
Right.
in that episode of Rebels, we learned that many of the clones that still existed had been sort of decommissioned or forcibly retired. Was that a euphemism for we executed them, or were they like those guys and hanging out somewhere, in their golden years?
It's probably a combination of things. I'd say a lot of them did get old enough to where they're like, okay, you're not any good as soldiers anymore, so we'll just let you go and live. We'll keep tabs on you, because the Empire did keep tabs on them with Wolf.
Sure.
He was reporting in every once in a while.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Empire just let them go wherever they wanted, but I don't think they just executed them either.
They're perfect spies, right? Old people. Nobody suspects them.
That's right.
Well, that, and it's not really worth the blaster bolt to get rid of them. When if they're loyal to the Empire, which it seems like most of them were, you can control them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course Rex took out his control chip, or had it taken out. Depending on
good job,
your
Ahsoka.
point of view. Gregor had some issues anyway. He is from the episode, or the arc, the D Squad, the Droid Squad, where he got separated from his unit and had amnesia and some sort of head trauma. And we don't really know what happened in that time period anyway. So that probably messed with his control chip in some way that allowed him to kind of be what we see him to be in Rebels.
Right.
Now, Wolf, as far as I know, Wolf still had his control chip, but he obviously had an injury as well. You can see the large scar across the front of his face.
Yeah.
And he notably was not with his Jedi when Order 66 went out, because his Jedi was Plo Koon, who was in a spaceship at the time, and Wolf was not. Wolf is not the clone that shot him down. So,
because he was not in the Starcraft.
Well, and because of them being de facto, genetic wise, they're maybe the Bad Batch is immune to Order 66.
That is entirely possible, because, like you said, they've got genetic abnormalities that cause them to be different, that can mess with the control chips. Also, they don't seem to work with a Jedi, so they wouldn't have a Jedi to target when the order goes out.
Yep.
Right.
Now, if they happen to be around a Jedi when the order went out, maybe they would try to take that Jedi down, and maybe we get to see that. That would be an interesting way to start the series.
Oh, that would be cool. Although Derek and I were talking a little earlier today as we were prepping for the episode. Do you think that Echo, cybernetically enhanced Echo, from the final season of the Clone Wars is going to be hanging around with the Bad Batch brothers during their show. Is he part of the team of mercenaries, or is this going to be just the 4 original Bad Batch? We should probably go over who they are, just to refresh people's memories real quick. We got
Hunter
Hunter as the
you got
leader.
Wrecker, which is the big guy.
Tech, who is the computer whiz dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And the sniper.
Sniper, which was Crosshair.
Crosshair, yeah. Who had the crosshair tattoo over his eye.
Yep, and could shoot from far away. So, and then you had Echo, who joined them at the end. So I think he'll be in it. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they kill him off.
Could be.
I would.
Nathan, what do you think?
I think he will be in it. I think the whole reason they had him join the Bad Batch in that arc was to allow him to be in the show when they went to create the show. Because I have to imagine that Dave knew that this was going to happen when they were finishing up that show. And they probably, I know a lot of the rendering was already done for that arc, but he has said that there are some things they went back and added. And I think that's one of them was showing Echo joining the Bad Batch so that he could be in this. Scott, you mentioned the 4 character dynamic with the Ninja Turtles and Fantastic Four and various teams like that. There's also a 5-person dynamic where you have the leader, the Lancer.
Echo Splinter.
I'm sorry?
Echo is Splinter.
No. In this case, Echo is April. Because in the 5-person dynamic, you have the leader, who would be Hunter, the Lancer, who's kind of like the second in command, and that would be Crosshair. You have the tech guy, who is the tech guy. I mean,
okay, hold on. We got to relate this to Team Ninja Turtles. So Hunter is Leonardo.
Okay. Yeah. There we go.
You've got Tech,
Lance,
who is Donatello.
Tech is Donatello.
Crosshair is going to be probably,
Raphael.
I would imagine, Michelangelo, because Wrecker is the angry issue one. That's got to be Raphael.
Teenage Mutant
But I
Ninja
could see
Turtles
Wrecker
messes
being
with this a little
Michelangelo
bit.
because he's the goofy one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So, but I he's also got anger issues, so that's where I was kind of throwing it up. So,
the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles does kind of mess with this a little bit because the standard is you have the leader, the Lancer, the tech guy, the big guy, and the heart. So
you wrote
Planet. So we got
it's more
Planet.
Captain Planet. Yeah, there you go.
Could be, but
or the Power Rangers.
If we're looking at just the turtles, then Raphael kind of takes the role of both the big guy and the Lancer, because he's the guy who's always like vying for control, but Leonardo is the guy who's actually leading them.
But I was going to say
the Lancer is supposed to contrast with the leader.
Yeah, but the 5th one is always one that isn't the same as the rest, though. So like you've mentioned April O'Neil, she's not a mutant. She's an outcast. So I'm not saying that Tech isn't there, but at the same time, he is them, though. He is a clone already. He's gone through war and all that stuff. He's not an outsider that joins the party. To some degree.
Well, Echo is kind of an outsider from them because he doesn't have a genetic abnormality. His abnormality.
Now he's a zombie.
His abnormality comes from the separatist testing on him and turning him into something that he wasn't.
So that's what's you can kind of see it, but at the same time, I think he's still clone enough that I don't know, he can relate to them easily enough that I just feel like the 5th person has always been the complete outsider. Not to say that, like you said, they can write it that way, but I would think it would be somebody a different race, or somebody, or they save someone and they join the party, or maybe it's the Grief Karga of them, right? He's the one that's going to be the mercenary leader, or how they're getting these bounties, right? The chips.
Yeah,
well,
I think that could be true.
I think Echo is going to be more of the guy who stays in the ship and tells them, okay, this is what we need to do.
He's the
go
pilot.
This way, do that.
He's their command and control. Yeah,
he can drive that tanker.
He's going to be their R2-D2.
Yes, that's it.
Well, I mean, he kind of has the whole thing that R2 always known for, right?
The scomp link. Yeah, he's got the manual scomp link. Oh, that's true. I can see this. He's their R2-D2. Yeah, for sure.
And maybe
gonna...
I was gonna maybe like every 2 episodes he gets a part blown off and he's got to become more robotic.
Eventually, he'll be more machine than man.
Eventually, he's K2SO.
Or maybe maybe that's how they call him GI whatever for honorary of Grant.
Oh, yeah, there you go. He's
Oh,
the
yeah.
GI series of droid cyborg guy. Well, if any of those things happen, or if completely different things happen, you can hear about it here on What a Piece of Junk, because we will definitely be analyzing and over-analyzing every episode of Star Wars, The Bad Batch, the latest from Lucasfilm Animation. The rest of the press release over at StarWars.com further elucidates for us the details that Star Wars, The Bad Batch is executive produced by Dave Filoni, Athena Portillo, Brad Rao, and Jennifer Corbett, the team behind most of the Star Wars animation. Then Carrie Beck from Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and Rebels is co-executive producer, and Josh Rhimes is the producer. Rhimes has experience from Star Wars Resistance. Rao is also serving as supervising director, with Jennifer Corbett as head writer. Corbett's writing credits include, of course, Star Wars Resistance, but also NCIS. So that's a cool little nod to a team-based show of, independent operators going about trying to solve to thwart evil.
Yeah, that'd be a good crossover. But I have to ask, so Nathan, with all the Bad Batch, have you done anything with your Legion troopers yet to make a Bad Batch group?
I have not, because I still cannot get enough Legion troops. I've been trying to get the Phase 2 Stormtrooper, not Stormtroopers. Phase 2 Clone Troopers. Good guys, not bad guys.
Yeah, sure.
White armor, not white armor.
It's all a certain point of view.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That's Anakin. No, that's Darth Vader.
Because to the Separatists, they were the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been trying to get the Phase 2s in, and I haven't been able to. So once they do come in, I'll paint them up some way. Plus, the ARC Troopers are going to come out on August 28th. Those were announced by Fantasy Flight Games today.
Yep, we are recording this on July the 16th in the year of hell 2020.
I should say they weren't announced today, but we got an update today that told us about Fives and Echo. So if you want to play Echo from the Bad Batch, you can play him on August the 28th.
Pre-cybernetic Echo.
Well, that depends on how much you mod up the figure.
True. Yeah, if you make a Bad Batch, so.
I mean, he comes with a sniper gun, so all I got to do is attach that instead of the arm.
Make him a scope link.
Booyah. All right, great. Okay. Well, I believe that's pretty much as we have that we can say and discuss about the Bad Batch at this point in time.
We can start our own rumor if you want, Scott.
We could. All we got to do is post a YouTube video and talking about how, this and that's going to come true and blah, blah, blah. But I do have some substantial content to tell you about, not a rumor, and that is the current status of the poll in our Facebook group for What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast, where we asked people what they wanted to name this starship we've been flying around, our very own modified YT-1300 Corellian freighter. Still in the lead with the most votes is the Drunken Gungan. Coming up behind in second place is Rubber Ducky. And then we have Lucky Gambit number 4 and Space Wizard as also Rans. But we're going to leave that open probably till the end of July, so you guys can go on Facebook and vote in the poll. And then sometime in August, we'll have a sort of christening of the starship as we announce the winner of the poll.
Awesome. So I'm still hoping that the Rubber Ducky or Space Wizard comes up. So,
See, I like the Lucky Gambit 4. Don't ask what happened to 1 through 3.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, so whatever name wins, you'll be able to hear about it right here on the show in the very near future. But until that time, we want to thank everybody for being listeners to this episode. Remember to find us over on social media to hit us up with your thoughts, reviews, comments, suggestions, whatever we can do to help make this podcast more enjoyable. Derek, where can people find you on the social media?
You can hit me up on Facebook under my real name, Derek Marsh. I frequent the Facebook group, so at What a Piece of Junk Star Wars podcast Facebook group, and then also a little bit on Twitter at HoodieDM83. Nathan, where can the team find you?
You can find me on Facebook under my real name, Nathan Miracle, or you can find me on Twitter at Gooey Chewy and check out some of the miniatures that I paint and post there. Scott, where can people find you?
So I am on Facebook under my real name, Scott Bautman. And of course, I am also on Twitter. I run the Twitter for the show at What Wars, and my personal Twitter is at Scotticusmax. And I do write my own science fiction novels, so you can find my author website at writegreatscott.com. And thanks for listening, everybody. Remember to always respect each other's fandom. All right, Nathan, punch it.